Hi, this is Abby from Aroza Wellbeing Center here in Dubai. Addiction. Who is not addicted to anything? We are all addicted to one thing or another. We are going through this topic together with my guests here. I will start to my right. Tricia.
Hi, Abby. Hi.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
I like what you're wearing.
Thank you.
It's quite shiny.
I'm addicted to pink.
She's addicted to pink. Here you go. And we love pink.
We do.
They do.
Not really.
Dr. Farah. Hello.
Hi, Abby.
How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good.
Good.
I have a nice contrast. Pink here and non-pink here.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are combining.
yeah.
Elise.
Yeah, we're blending together. Somehow we match, don't
Yes.
we? It's quite
Instinct.
nice.
Hello, Elise.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you
How
for
are you
having
doing?
us. I'm good.
Good.
Doing very well.
Nice.
Now better.
Awesome.
Elise, addiction.
Yeah.
What do you want to tell us? When you hear addiction, Elise, what's in your mind, really? What comes straight to your mind?
I feel like everybody is addicted to something these days, whether it's coffee or social media, drugs, alcohol, you name it. There's always something to find to be addicted to. It's very difficult. You must have patients coming all the time to you asking
Yes.
about addiction. It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
It really is.
And could be addicted
Yeah.
to anything.
True.
Right.
I might be addicted to chocolate.
Which
Maybe
one?
you can
Dark?
help me. Yeah, dark chocolate.
Yeah.
Doctor,
Yeah. So,
addiction, what comes to your mind?
so addiction for me, at least in my realm and in my practice, it's about understanding the brain pathways that we develop over time, so that's like a feedback mechanism that makes us want to engage in whatever it is. So it's sort of like we've trained our brain to need this.
Yeah.
So I keep needing it, and then we keep it's just relaying back to each other. I want it, I need it, I do it, and I want it back again. So it's that
Makes me happy.
it makes exactly. Well, it might just give you that happiness in that moment, right? But then just a few seconds later, you can have a lot of fallout within yourself.
It's just a temporary.
It's temporary, but you go back to it because that brain pathway is made. That mapping in your brain is already there. So it's a lot of behavior. It's a lot of, sometimes it's chemicals. Sometimes it's many different things, or sometimes it's emotionally driven to mask certain problems. So it's quite deep. It's quite a lot of angles.
It's a very, very vast area to explore.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a huge topic, and it's something that, with all the best intentions in the world, we would never complete in one episode. And it really is a very serious topic. I believe that addiction is looking for behaviors that look for a temporary pleasure, a temporary relief of quite a lot of the time either physical or even emotional pain that don't give us anything good at the end, that have negative consequences that we know is not going to be good for us, and yet we cannot stop it. And we believe we cannot stop it. And I have worked with clients who have overcome their addictions once they've realized that they're believing that they can't stop it. But when they realize that that's a belief system in itself, they are able to not continue along those lines of behavior. But I tend to also see that those neural pathways, especially when we're talking about endorphins and the hormones, the dopamine, that I question actually what happened to us, that we can't produce that on our own. Gabor Mate discusses this brilliantly on a TED Talk, and suggests that one of his patients, who was a very, very addicted heroin addict, said that her first fix felt like a warm hug from a mother. And she didn't have a connection with her mother as a child. So not everyone becomes addicted to drugs. Not everyone becomes addicted to TV. Not everyone becomes addicted to YouTube. Please continue to watch us. But not everyone becomes addicted to shopping or to coffee. It's not the substance per se. It's the vulnerability that we have when we are introduced to these substances and what is missing for me. So I look at addicts as people who desperately need to be understood and what happened to them, what went wrong for them. Gabor Mate again talks about his experience as a young child in 44 to a Jewish mother, and how his mother was so desperately anxious about the war and losing him, she gave him away to a loving neighbor to take care of him, and or to have him in case she was killed, and only retrieved him after 5 months. So he didn't know about Hitler or genocide or war, but he certainly knew what it was like to be cut off from his mother. And so he grew up believing that he had to fill in that gap, and he filled it in by not using drugs, but by buying classical music. And so another thing that he explains brilliantly is that when we have this lack that's come from a very deep childhood place, we can also turn that into being needed. Because if I'm needed, I'll be kept, I'll be loved, I won't be abandoned. So he then became a workaholic. Which is in itself an addiction.
That's the power of association, right? How we link ideas and link thoughts,
exactly,
right? And we link it to the feeling, we link it to emotion. Sometimes we don't know where it's coming from. But that association we have, whether we acknowledge it or not, is what drives that belief system or drives our actions and and the outcome that happens. So it's, and I think that's why too, if we know, first of all, we identify that we have a problem, right? And how do we know we have a problem? That's the other thing.
Well, we start lying to cover it up, right? We get away, we get around the truth and hide. I had an addiction. I'm absolutely conscious of it. I had an addiction to mothering. I know that sounds strange, but I needed to be the 24/7 mother to my children, especially when they were babies, to avoid having to deal with the outside world. I didn't want to go back to work. I wanted to be with them. And it was all really very much around my own disconnection with my own mother when I was a very small child. And so I wanted to compensate that and get that connection back. So I needed help in those early days, because there was nothing anyone could say to help me take the foot off the pedal in this mothering.
And how did you recognize that, though? That sounds...
I recognized it by the mere fact that to think that I would be without my children in any time of the day was unbearable. It was unbearable. It wasn't just your average, I shouldn't say average, I don't mean to minimize it, but it wasn't the usual codependency that comes along in relationships. It was a need. And I slept in their rooms. I waited for them to wake up. I'd stand over them, waiting for them to wake up and need me. And I really did work on this and found that this was a true addiction.
But you noticed, at some stage during that motherhood, you noticed that it might be too much, or you never noticed?
Oh, I knew it would be too much. It was painful in a way.
It's not like somebody med you aware of it. You discovered
Well, a lot of people tried, particularly my children. But it was like, talk to the poor. But, I weaned off them. I weaned off them. They taught me to be a parent, and they taught me. But getting back to addiction, it was the complete awareness in my own truth that this was not right, this was not healthy, and yet I couldn't stop it. I believed that I wouldn't have a role, they wouldn't need me, I'd lose their love. And it's the same with everything else that we're addicted to.
I don't see it as a strange addiction, because we, as you said, everybody said, we are addicted to something, somehow. But to be aware of it and try to control it, that's what makes us a hero, a self-hero. And I like what you said, I was aware of it, and you learned from it. Although they were from your children, but you learned from it. Oh, maybe it's too much.
And I've had conversations with them now and throughout their life, explaining my behavior, so that they don't think it was them. And this is what happens when addicts actually break free of the grip of the belief system that they need this substance to cope and to feel no pain. Because if you look at it, codeine, alcohol, drugs, any sorts of pain, oxytocin, any kinds of painkillers are there to numb pain. So what is the pain? We're going the wrong way about it. What happened to us for us to not have the endorphins, the dopamine, the serotonin? our brains are, and again, in studies that Gabor Mate speaks about, they're formed through our mother's experience.
Wow.
And in 44, he said that his pediatrician was visiting households of babies who just couldn't stop crying.
Wow.
And yet they knew nothing about war or Hitler.
They don't, yeah.
So they were feeding off the anxiety of the mother. And
what you're talking about is absolutely
Wow.
makes sense, because this is a whole topic in psychology called epigenetics. It's the environment around you affecting your DNA, right? Affecting your DNA, and your DNA will be passed to your descendant.
Yes.
So exactly, they didn't know Hitler, but they were crying.
Exactly. So
They
what are you
didn't know
looking for
fear
later?
or bombing.
You're looking for security. You're looking for connection. So therefore, we may go into bad relationships, or we may
Yeah.
have a bad relationship with substance, with
Yeah.
food, with over-exercising. Anything for us to get that feeling of, oh, I'm okay now.
Right.
And then we identify with that feeling, and then we wonder, well, who am I going to be without this?
Exactly.
Who am I actually?
But sometimes, do you see addiction? I mean, it takes many different forms,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Sometimes it's not necessarily something that deep. It might just be a mere compulsion, where you've already set that path, that you just have this urge that I need to fulfill this again for whatever little pleasure that you get at that point in time, and
Yeah.
that drives the feedback, right? That I need this at this point in time. But just like people who are addicted to screens or their phones, or
Yeah.
I mean, that's not. I don't think it's going as deep as emotional
Yeah.
connection. It's just literally, it's a habit that you've developed. But
What
it
are we
goes a little bit
escaping?
beyond.
My question would be, what am I
Yeah,
trying not
because-
to look at while I'm doing
exactly.
that? What am I not doing? Which is that human connection.
Yeah.
Well, I see it a little bit differently. You know, I do see it a little bit, because it might not necessarily be an escape. It might just be how we develop habits over time, right?
Yeah.
Where our brain just tells us that we need this, or am I looking for something? Am I getting what I'm looking for? Because it could just be an acknowledgement, like somebody liked your profile, or somebody
Yeah.
whatever, and that gives you enough, that tick. So it's not that you're covering something, but you're searching for something.
True.
You know, and you're
Outside
getting
of
that
yourself.
outside of yourself. You know, so but it's a habit. It's something that develops over time, and that's where we need to. So I think everybody, when it comes to addiction, at least with my clients, we have to go back and try to really analyze and get them to figure out, because it's not about me. I can't give you the answer. It's that we have to discover the answer together and figure out, and you know, where does the strength of the person lie? You know,
Yeah.
because when you find your strength and you identify that, then
Yeah.
it's easier to move.
I also believe that there's a lot of internal dialogue which
Right.
takes over. Like,
Agreed.
you know, I have a client who for many, many years literally told himself from the moment he woke up in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I need a drink.
Right.
I need a drink.
Wow.
I need a drink.
Wow.
So guess what he did when he got home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? He had a drink.
Yeah.
And he would drink until he went to bed. And then every day it would be Groundhog Day. He would just do
Yeah.
the same thing.
Wow.
But the proof that you need a drink is when you're drinking, not when you're not.
Right.
So all day long, he's telling himself and convincing himself that he
Yeah.
needs a drink when he doesn't.
Right.
Preparing his mind.
Yes.
You know, when
Setting
I'm getting,
himself
And that's the
I'm
brain
setting the
setting
part.
program
himself up.
already. Wow.
Exactly.
Constantly setting himself up. So the question I asked him was, is that even true
Yeah.
that you need a drink when you're not drinking?
Exactly, we're not drinking.
So there are steps in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, for instance.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
Exactly.
You know, one evening at a time, 1 hour at a time.
Exactly.
You know.
So it doesn't matter what kind of addiction we have,
Yeah.
what kind of addiction we're going through, or someone else is going through. You must find why it is happening, what you're trying to recover or fulfill.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
what is it that I need?
What
Yeah.
that exactly? What is it that
Yeah.
I need? And once you find out, that might be the whole problem, and right there.
Exactly.
Might be.
Might be.
Might be.
Yes.
But don't we really have healthy addictions? We do.
We have healthy addictions.
I mean,
I
don't.
think addiction sort of gives it away a little bit.
And I think that's a borderline where we go back again, habit versus addiction, right?
Right,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it's
So,
not a
Yeah, healthy
negative word.
habits
Yeah.
versus addiction.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
That's
it's-
where was I heading.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
not really a negative word,
yes.
right?
So,
But
well,
we call it
yeah.
something else.
Well, I think addiction is a little goes beyond that habit. So it's like we have a
How
habit
about
of doing
addicted
something.
to being kind and loving?
but why?
Why? What am I wanting to get from it?
What am I gaining
Exactly.
Being
from
too
that,
nice can
right?
kill you.
Exactly.
Being too nice can kill you. Being too nice can
exactly.
put you in trouble.
Yeah, no
Right.
boundaries and not speaking your
Yeah.
truth
Yes.
and wanting to sacrifice your own well-being for
For
someone
others,
else.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do believe that humans, given the way the mind is collective, we are addicted to thought.
Yeah.
We're
We
addicted
are
to thinking.
all addicted to thinking.
We're addicted to
And
thinking.
overthinking.
Are you
And
talking about
overthinking.
rumination?
All of it.
Rumination,
Yes.
yeah.
From one thought.
We need to know how to stop it.
Yeah, we can't stop it.
But addiction is part of our life.
It is.
We might be addicted when we were younger to something that we are not anymore addicted to, like
That's
playing
true.
with dolls or toys or whatever,
Yeah.
anything. Probably when we were teenagers, we were addicted to something else, video games, whatever.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we're addicted to so many things. Honestly, you're right, actually, there are healthy habits.
Yeah,
let's call
and
them.
that's the thing. So, like for me as a clinician, how I view it is that when, if I have to draw the line, like the demarcation, where is it is it causing a problem in my life or in someone else's
Yeah.
life? When you know your habit has crossed over into making problems, then I would say the addiction, that realm of addiction exists. If that,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's good to be aware of
it's
your
good
health.
to know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just good to know that when I've gone too far with
Too
what
far.
I'm doing.
So balance,
You know?
we're talking about balance.
Always.
We need to
Always.
find
Always.
balance.
Balance is everything.
Now, what are you addicted to? Social media, shopping, motherhood, whatever it might be. As everybody said, find the balance. Too much of this will imbalance this, too much of that will imbalance that. But once you find a stable area of your life, probably you should be addicted to it, addicted to balance and stability. But tell us, please, what you think is a bad addiction or an addiction to you, or what might you being addicted to? Follow us, tick that box, like, share, subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye now.